Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All right. Thanks for stopping by. This is
All systems on a go. All systems on a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by on our rare Sunday afternoon stream. I'm TC. This is MBRR Media, and this is another episode 2 of Mayoral Meanderings. Somebody had asked me, why Mayoral Meanderings? And I said, have you never listened to me talk about politics in a small town? But then I thought I'd include Justin in that, and well, he meanders. Much like our Spring Creek meanders so gently and peacefully throughout all of town, sometimes literally all throughout town. But thank you for tuning in. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that like. If you're watching on Rumble, hit the, I don't know what we call it over on Rumble these days, but hit the like there as well. Thanks to the show producers, the Angry Vet from YouTube, IMAP from Subscribestar, and then my anonymous. You guys all know who you are. You make the show run. You keep things going. You help keep the lights on and the internet going. I don't know if that's a blessing to people these days, having the internet. I keep hearing more and more that we spend way too much time being worried about what we can do with our phones and our technology and not enough time talking to other people, which I think might be true. But I had an interesting experience actually as it relates to Spring Valley. Just a few days ago on Wednesday, I went down Wednesdays on Broadway, downtown Spring Valley, and talked to quite a few people. We had about almost 20,000 people watch that video, that stream. So no pressure for Justin to perform to drive numbers up today. But if you're watching, we do appreciate you being here, and we thank you for your time. We are going to be discussing the most recent town hall meeting in preparation for the next town hall meeting, which is coming right on the heels of the most recent one. And in that meeting, Justin and Council Member Chris asked the question of the people of Spring Valley: what can we do to improve the town? What can we do to improve making the town of Spring Valley appealing? And we're going to discuss some of that today. Probably won't be a terribly long conversation, but it's an important conversation to have. But Justin doesn't know this until right now when he hears me say it. I've got a question for him right out of the gate. No, are you prepared?
Let's go.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yep. Can you single-handedly promise to stop flooding for the rest of eternity?
Before I answer that, first I want to say you may not get 20,000 views on this video, but I bet you'll get at least 20.
The city council members will be watching to look for some reason to tell you can no longer be mayor after that performance is what.
Maybe.
And then your family members going, why do you subject yourself to him? That's no, actually, in all seriousness, I'm not. We can discuss flooding. I'm sure it'll come up at the next town hall. So hello to Polly. Thanks for stopping in. I hope you stick around and hit that like. And by the way, if you're watching and you are a Spring Valley resident or a Spring Valley business owner, because we do not discriminate here, we want to hear from people who own businesses in town and who live in town as well. If you have a question, put it in the chat and I will try and get to it. My question for you out of the gate Justin. As everybody knows, I do not like using titles. In fact, Justin knows when he hears me say Mr. Mayor from across the flooded river, I'm probably picking on him, encouraging him to jump in, jump. My question for you out of the gate is, at the beginning of the last town hall, you came back with some feedback from the city council and yourself about what was the hot topic from the very first meeting, town hall meeting, which was code enforcement and what can we do, and on and on and on. And there was a general consensus. It was not a complete consensus, but there was a general consensus that people wanted more and aggressive code enforcement. And so I do know that multiple members of the city council watched that town hall and shared some feedback with you, and that it came away from the council meeting following that where they said, yes, we are going to more aggressively do code enforcement in Spring Valley. And that wasn't the topic of the town hall meeting, but it did come up. You brought it up. So instead of talking to you about that there, I'm curious what that's going to look like in the future for Spring Valley. What does more aggressive town hall or city council, excuse me, what does more aggressive city council or city of Spring Valley code enforcement look like? And what does that mean? And then we can go into the rest of that. But that was my question coming out of the town hall meeting.
Yeah, so what does that look like? What they determined, what council determined was that we would, if there's a violation to an ordinance, would send a letter to that home, that residence, and inform them that they are in violation. And then give them time to take care of that. And then there's no, it's hard to say specifically the timeline, because if you get a letter a week before a council meeting, nothing's going to happen. So what the
Right.
idea is, they would give you a determined amount of time to take care of the issue. And then if it's not taken care of, you would come for a public hearing at the next council meeting. So a week is maybe not enough time. So it could be anywhere from 4 weeks, 6 weeks between the time you receive that letter to the time that a public hearing would take place.
So are we talking about like junk ordinance, lawn, maintenance? Are we talking dogs that aren't licensed, cats that aren't licensed? You got a pet velociraptor or a boa constrictor. I mean, what is this? Are we looking more explicitly? When I say we, I mean the city. And I'm not the city, but I'm a resident here.
Yeah.
Are we talking about, okay, somebody has a neighbor that has a junk violation, and the neighbor complains, the city goes out and takes a look, and then, or are we talking about regular, quarterly or biannual tours or whatnot?
So I guess it probably could be any ordinance, but I think it's more specific to the more severe ones, like junk or something along those lines, where if you don't mow your grass, you're going to get a letter, but that letter's typically a little different, because they say if you don't mow it within this amount of time, we're going to send the city folks over to mow it for you and then charge you. So I don't think that something like that would probably ever come to council for a public hearing. However, if it's ongoing, it may.
It's interesting, because I think it's something, one, you thought it was important enough to share at the town hall. Two, it's an interesting topic, because every ordinance, we have ordinances for a reason. We have state statutes, state codes, we have city ordinances, city codes, things like that, county codes. They're enforceable, which means they have to have teeth. And as I had mentioned in the very first town hall, and people didn't believe me, that ultimately a lot of these can come down to, and God forbid, and I know that's not your goal, but God forbid, some of these violations of an ordinance or a city code could result in the seizure of a person's property, forfeiture, and I don't even like saying forfeiture. I mean seizure, the seizure of a person's property, and that's had sparked a conversation in our last mayoral meanderings where we had challenged people to not use this year to be the year to call your neighbor in for long grass, which this year in particular has been a great year to take a look at that, because we've had more than our fair share of rain this year, and no end of mowing. You can't hardly go outside at any time of the day these days and not hear someone running their mower. But we had challenged people, instead of calling on what you see as a clear violation of an ordinance in town, offer help. And you had even said that you would be willing to build a voluntary team to help with some of those things. And to me, that's far more community. That's I mean that in the non hardcore left way that they use community. I mean it in that genuine live with your neighbor and be at peace with your neighbor way. Have you had anybody reach out and say, "Hey, I do know somebody that needs help cleaning junk out of their yard, or needs some
So
mowing done"?
yeah, there's a couple of individuals who contact me frequently, typically when I'm out and about and they catch me. Um, and they
He's
bring
not
up issues.
referring to me this time, by the way.
They bring up issues, and then they'll follow up with, "Are you going to get that group of people together?" Um, so, yes, I want to get that group together. That is not. I don't think that's a city committee, board, group.
Mm-mm.
That is me as an individual wanting to help my neighbors, and I use the term neighbor loosely because the person across town who needs help, I would consider them my neighbor as well. So
Who is
that's
my
just,
neighbor?
yeah. So that is just me wanting to be a decent human being and a good resident of my community. So no, it is not going to happen at the city level, but yes, I hope that at some point I can get that going as a resident. There's some challenges to that, and we could go into that if you want to, but
Well, I think one of the drawbacks is people hear the mayor say something like that, and they automatically assume he's forming a committee to build up volunteer teams. It's
right.
like,
But
and you'll
then
get a
you
lot of
also,
people that'll volunteer to be on a committee but not do work.
right, right, absolutely. Everybody wants to make a decision, but nobody wants to, do the work
to
that results from
execute
that
said
decision.
decisions. Yeah.
So the real big challenge with that is there are people who don't feel their yard has junk in it, and it's really not my place to tell them that their belongings are junk. However, I do. It's a weird place to sit, and there's got to be some balance because I don't want to tell you that your yard is full of junk, but at the same time, I want my entire community to look decent. Not perfect by any means, but decent. When you're driving through on the major highways through Spring Valley, you want it to look good, in some
Right.
respects.
You just don't want to see TC in his front yard with his shirt off, is what you're saying. I totally understand that. I mean, it's
Well, no. You have every right to do that if you so choose, I suppose.
people are like, "What is that train wreck over?" Somebody should do something about. Oh, it's a person. Does he need help? He looks like he needs help. He's lost. He's clearly lost.
Well, at least his clothes. I do want to say, though, I was contacted by a resident shortly after making that statement, hey, don't call City Hall, ask people if they need help. And they were very frustrated because somebody took it, and they're assuming it's a neighbor or someone that lives nearby, that she was not mowing her yard for a specific reason. She was going to be having some landscaping done and some work to her property, and so purposely wasn't mowing. And so this individual came along and just mowed her yard. She didn't know who it was. She caught a glimpse of him on her Ring camera and thought she might know, but didn't know. And so, that's a whole nother issue. You
Right.
can't just go on someone's property and start mowing. You need to have a conversation with them and ask, hey, do you need help? I'm more than willing to bring my mower over. I'll use your mower. I'll buy the gas, whatever the agreement is. But there has to be that agreement. You can't just trespass and start working on someone's property.
Well, I think that's a really good point, though, Justin. Is that I was having this conversation with in another group. Somebody had posted pictures of a yard that they considered, and it wasn't in Spring Valley, thank God, this time, but of a yard that they thought was really not being maintained, and they were complaining that no one's doing anything about it. And I, being that formerly the guy, and you know this about me, the guy who was like out there like practically measuring the lines as he's mowing them, and having gone now over the last couple of years to be a no chemical yard, and now making plans to convert my yard to prairie grasses and flowers, I would be incredibly upset if somebody, even if I wasn't converting my yard, if somebody came and screwed up my mowing pattern for the week, I would that's how petty I can be if I need to be. I would be incredibly upset if you just came over to my yard and started spraying the weeds. Because I have, as I've told multiple people, I've got 2, maybe 3 different colonies of different subspecies of bumblebees on my yard, which has motivated me to make some of the decisions I'm making. It's beautiful to have them here and to have the hummingbirds and whatnot. You come and screw that up, we're going to have words. It'll be civil, but we'll have words about you trespassing on my property. And I think you're right, and it's difficult to find that balance between not wanting to turn someone in, because as everybody who pays attention to my content, I am not a big fan of government involvement in our personal lives, and to include our private property, what I can and cannot do, as long as I'm not physically, tangibly hurting someone else. And so if you look at your neighbor's yard and your response is, I don't like the fact that they haven't mowed to the way I want it mowed over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I'm just going to go do it. You are tangible. You're physically hurting that person's property without their permission. That's actually a crime. So you have to find that balance, and that's what I think you talking about, getting people together who are willing to do the outreach, is so much more important than just taking it upon yourself to either call and potentially start a legal problem for this person, which also is a legal problem for the city, which is ultimately then a legal problem for the taxpayers. Just keep that in mind, folks. But also, you're causing a legal problem for yourself if that person does identify you, because you don't have that right. And that's why I was really encouraged with your statement, like in our last mayoral meanderings, that we need to find a way where we're actually taking care of one another. If that means putting together voluntary groups who make contact with someone who might be in need, and trying to find a way to do it where we're not insulting them. Yes. Hey, your yard looks like crap, man. Could you pick a... What are you talking about? That's art. That's architecture art. It's art in my... I'm literally got a guy looking at buying that for $3,000, and you want to... And then the politician in you would be like, did you pay... Are you going to pay taxes on that? So yeah, I'm just very encouraged by your goals in this, and can relate to your conflict.
And I think the biggest issue I have with getting going is I don't know everyone in town. I don't know some of the folks that have yards that maybe are issues, or even homes. I mean, maybe you need your house re-roofed or painted, or whatever the case may be. But I can't just go and knock on the door and say, hey, your yard is trash, I'm here to clean it up. I don't know what the mental state of that person is. you got to get to know them, and you got to, sometimes do it a little more tenderly than that, and you,
Nah.
you may get punched square in the face. I don't know. I'm not willing to put myself or anyone else in that position.
Right. No, I think that's. I've loved that this has been a conversation that's been opened up for people to talk about, and I think that the very first town hall, and then we can move on. The very first town hall really did start to, for lack of better terminology, really did start to open people's eyes up to what it means, because there are so many people in town, regardless of their political ideology, left wing, right wing, whatever, who do not realize the ramifications of, I don't like the fact that my neighbor does X, get the city involved. There is so much about that says, in the reality of it, I want this fixed, but I don't want to be part of the solution. And we need to teach people a lesson if they're not going to comply. That to me is not the way we're supposed to be living in small agrarian rural Minnesota. We shouldn't be living like that in urban Minnesota or anywhere else, or urban anywhere else. But to me, that's definitely not in keeping with the Minnesota spirit, I hope. So I wanted to open with that, because let's get the hard part out of the way.
Well, and before we move on, I do want to say, to my knowledge, I could be wrong. I've been a few times in my life, but I don't believe to date City Hall has received a single call on unmowed yards. I hope that is true, and I can double check and find out for sure. But to my knowledge, I have not heard that we have received a call. So if that's true, that's exciting. That's
That's
at least
a
one
huge
step in the
improvement.
right. We're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, even your proclamation with May being recognized finally in Minnesota, or in Spring Valley, as No Mow May, wasn't a requirement that everybody leave their yard unmowed. Nobody was saying you cannot mow your yard. You were just saying, if you choose to not mow your yard this month, the city's not going to come breathing down your neck, and we're not going to be fielding any phone calls and entertaining complaints about your neighbor having dandelions in their yard. So that to me was a huge step in the right direction. So I think the door being open for these conversations is great, and I think it's a step in the right direction, which is something that hasn't really for a long time been entertained, even in this small little town like ours. And I'm not knocking the town for its size. I know of smaller towns that have bigger problems right now. So, takeaway from the last town hall, where it was kind of like, what can we do to improve growth and invite people to town and make Spring Valley more inviting to visitors and other businesses and stuff. What was your takeaway besides we should be courting Amazon?
You know what? And no hate against Amazon. I have purchased things off of Amazon. I'm not a huge fan. No hate on them. Go get your money. I mean, that's you know what I mean. But I have seen so many of those plants either shut down or jobs replaced by AI and robotics that I don't want to get people excited for a huge number of jobs coming to town, only to find out in a few short months, sorry, you don't have a job anymore. And that is the whole. I know how my parents ran a small town cafe for years. I don't even know, 5 or 6 years maybe, in Iowa, northern Iowa. And I know how hard it is to run a small town business. But I think the benefits are so much greater. I'd rather have 100, I'd rather have, let's say 100 small town businesses, locally owned, that are doing really well, than one that employs the entire town. One large.
That is, there
mega
are inherent dangers. There are inherent dangers with that. of, all of a sudden a business like that can sweep into town, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, everybody who was working in Rochester or Austin or stay at home or whatever, they all like, wow, the pay is really good. I don't even have to drive to work. I can, walk. I can hop on my bike or, you know, my e-bike or whatever, and I can just go out there and work. And then all of a sudden the market shifts and they decide they don't want to be there anymore. Now everybody in the town is out that job.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that happens, whether it be Amazon or anything else, then you need to spend more time studying the history of the United States with the expansion of the U.S. from the east to the west. There were company towns all over the place that just washed up and shriveled or washed away or shriveled up and died. Coal mining towns, especially, are perfect examples of that in the east, in coal country. Towns were booming. Everybody was wealthy. Everybody had money, and all of a sudden the coal mine went bust, and the town died. And people still there, but yeah. So I think that's a really good point, and it looks good on the front end, though, doesn't it?
Right. And I would argue, I know there's different circumstances and things that have happened, but if a city like Detroit can go bankrupt and all their major business leaves town, I wouldn't think that could also happen here. I mean, we're just a speck on the map. Detroit is huge. If that city can basically be cut in population like 90% overnight, more or less, I think that could happen to Spring Valley as well.
Yeah. Do you think that there's, I don't know, this is probably more philosophical than we need to be on Mayoral Meanderings, but I'm not making a comment about Justin. I'm just saying. I will hear about this later. Do you think that the mindset of people is that industry, and when I mean industry, I think a lot of people confuse commercial and industry. But do you think that a lot of people have this mindset that somehow industry or something with manufacturing or whatever has to be the way that a town grows, makes its money, and attracts people? And therefore, when you ask the question, what can we do to expand Spring Valley as far as bringing people to town, increasing interest in town, they first thing that a lot of people will go to is create these industrial jobs or manufacturing jobs, when in reality that's just not feasible. That I'm not saying it could never happen, but in the reality of the way industry and manufacturing works in the United States today, even with sitting on a major U.S. highway and a major state highway, Spring Valley is just not enough of a hub to attract enough businesses to town that are going to all of a sudden put Spring Valley on the map financially, where people are just going to start flocking here for that.
Yeah,
there's got to be another solution.
So I would agree with you partially. I think what we have going for us in the industrial park is great. We do have space to expand on that, and I think we should. Do we put all of our eggs in that basket? Absolutely not. But
I'm writing that down, by the way, that you said you did agree with me.
Partially. Don't forget that part.
No, I did. I wrote partially agreed with me, date and time. So,
if it makes sense, and I think that that all of the businesses within the industrial park currently, if they're not owned by someone that lives in or near Spring Valley, it's still Minnesota, except for maybe AMD. I think they sold to someone on the West Coast, maybe. But I believe every other business is owned by someone locally.
Are you referring to the former SATA? SATA? No.
AMD.
Didn't SATA sell?
Did they? I thought
SATA sold too.
Oh, maybe I'm totally wrong then.
No, no. Hey, look, there's Spring Valley may only be a city of roughly 2,700 people, but there's still enough going on here that you can't know everything that's going on. And if you do know everything that's going on, you probably need to get a job. That's the thoughts and opinions of the host of the show are not necessarily reflective of the thoughts and opinions of anybody else in the world. So,
but you know, so if we have someone that's going to start up a new manufacturing facility that's going to employ 20 people and they live in town or they live nearby, that's awesome. Again, if it's somebody, you know, if Ford wants to come and set up a huge plant, I don't know if that's the best idea.
yeah. And, you know, there again, I mean, everything sounds really good in the idea phase, but not everything is really good in the actual execution phase or even, you know, down the road. Did you have any, or did you have another thought on that? Or
Yeah, so again, going back to the idea of balance, yes, let's grow the industrial park, but let's also grow the other businesses in town.
Right.
The ones that exist already, but then also new ones. We have space
Right.
in other areas of town that can support, that are zoned as commercial, and we could see a handful, you know, of businesses come to town. I think that would be great.
I know that between the two town halls that we've had thus far, the topic of THC came up in the very first town hall, and there was kind of an encouragement by a member of the community to make sure that that business doesn't come to Spring Valley. And I was left scratching my head, just there again, not on a philosophical level, but I was left scratching my head because it struck me as, okay, understandably, you are opposed, therefore don't take part. I think that, you know, if you're opposed to something, don't take part in it, whether it be alcohol or rock music or you know, whatever the case might be. Do not take part. But it is a growing industry. Well, not as fast as people thought it would be growing, you know, because the Minnesota legislature likes to say they're making improvements, and then once you get into the fine print, you find out that it's not as easy as you thought. But when you look at a, go ahead.
That's just everything government.
I agreed, Mr. Mayor.
Here's the title.
No arguments from this anarcho-capitalist at all. But when you look at the legalization of THC for personal use, for enjoyment in the state of Minnesota, and the fact that now, like in town, you can grow up to 4 plants for yourself, inside or outside, as long as it's secured and protected from public access, you know, reasonably so. The idea that somehow people are going to oppose somebody coming in and, you know, getting a building downtown or out in the commercial district and trying to jump through the hoops of getting the license, and they like, I love Spring Valley and I want to open this here. And there are people out there going, no, don't allow that. When I would say that, sure, are there going to be problems? Yeah, absolutely. Guess what? There are upscale breweries, and there are upscale distilleries, and there are, you know, but there are also dive bars. You know, do you want to go around and shut down all the dive? You might. Some people might personally want to shut down the dive bars, but there are some people that love their dive bar, and they're not divey people. They just love their dive bar. And so people's personal predilections and people's personal convictions aside, we could be missing a boat by not trying to encourage people to come in and compete for a business space and compete for that license that they have to get, you know, through the county or depending on the size, from the city to say, hey, look, we would really love to have you bring your business here, but we don't want those kind of people in town. It, would Spring Valley? Do you think Spring Valley would look at saying, hey, we've got a brewery in town. Is there anybody here? Anybody interested? We'll help. We'll kind of help fight for you to get a license to open a place like that in town, because I think an upscale THC dispensary would be far more appealing than another, for lack of better terminology, another, consignment store would be. And it appeals to the tourist aspect too. And I'm not saying you got to be high to come to Spring Valley. That is not what I'm saying.
We're in a valley, so you have to be low. So, repeat the question. You're asking if we would ever.
Do you think Spring Valley would be, as a city, as city government, would you guys be on board? Do you think of saying, look, hey, come and bring, because Sarah, people will hear if they go back, and I'll link the meeting, the town hall meeting, to this. Sarah said, look, I want to encourage businesses to come to town. I just don't want them to be buying up a bunch of space downtown and not have a business plan in place. Which, for the guy who's very small, limited government, like ultimately as limited as possible guy, I actually thought that to me was a reasonable idea to a degree. The idea of having to have a business plan to open a business kind of concerns me. But if you're going to come in and buy commercial space, give us an idea what you're going to do with it. And are we going to look down our noses? Would the city council look down their noses at a guy who wants to open a THC store or a THC dispensary, as opposed to somebody who wants to open up a green friendly, like something like the Green Refillery? Which one of those are we going to lean towards?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't speak for all of council, of course.
Clearly.
I personally, I don't see any difference between an upscale store and the quote unquote dive bar store.
Mm-hmm.
I think if somebody wants to purchase THC, they're going to go to wherever that it's sold. They may spend more time in a upscale location, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They're going to go and they're going to purchase it. So I don't, in my mind, I don't know if it matters in that aspect. But back to what you were saying earlier and whether or not we would support it at all. Again, I don't know what council's thoughts are, but I don't believe that we're going to see some huge uptick in the amount of marijuana use. Right. If people are using it now legally or illegally, whether they're growing it in their home or they're purchasing it from someone on the street, they're just going to buy it legally now. So I don't think that it's going to create a huge problem, a huge issue. We may get more people from out of town because our store would be the closest, but
or the coolest, or whatever it is that
right.
appeals to people.
The cheapest, maybe, I don't know. Or they have the greenhouse in back and they can go and tour it and see where it's grown and cut and dried and whatever the process is. I don't know. I've never done that, so I couldn't tell you.
Sure.
But I was actually approached by a resident who informed me that Byron is looking at a city-owned cannabis store. And they said, that's what you should be doing, because then you get all the profits and all of the taxes. And I'm like, I am not interested in being a drug dealer. Legally, right? Legally, but I'm not interested.
Well, I just don't. I just do not believe in. Me personally, I would oppose it. I don't believe in government-owned business. I mean, it's bad enough they got a lock on a lot of things. They don't. The last thing we need to do is that. That is not, no. And there are states where alcohol sales are completely owned by the government. The government literally owns all the the liquor stores.
And
So-
maybe I misunderstood them as well, but their liquor store in Byron is also owned by the city.
That's no, that's just no. That's a holdover from a bad time in history. That's what that is. That's
Well, no, well, okay, maybe that's true, but that is just looking for a way to get people addicted and continue to earn tax dollars and profit off of those addicted people.
yeah, true.
I mean, whether it's alcohol or THC, they're gonna come back, and you're gonna, you hook them, and you got them for life.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I'm just floored by the idea that no, and I'm not mocking people for that because it is a thing. It's a thing that exists, and it's a reality out there that there are places. I mean, the guy who looks like to be the shoo-in for the mayor of New York wants the city of New York to buy up and own all the grocery stores. I'm like, anybody ever had government cheese? Because that's what you're all about to get. That's what you're all about to get, government cheese. So. Could you imagine how bad the weed would be if it was government weed? So,
yeah.
But no, I because I do think that the reality is when we look to downtown Spring Valley, when we look to the commercial side, and there again, there's so much more to Spring Valley than just downtown. There are things and aspects of Spring Valley to be celebrated and to be pointed out. The agricultural industry that surrounds us, and there's no reason why we couldn't be more of an agricultural hub than we are. The question is whose responsibility is it to do that? And I think the inroad for Spring Valley, as I listened to people during the last town hall, the inroad for a town like Spring Valley, but in particular us, is really attracting out of towners to have a reason to come to town and stay in town for a day or a weekend, and to really just enjoy. The problem with that is that we're not offering people a lot of reasons to come and stay for even a weekend, let alone to move here. And as the question came, or the statement was made, look, we have to have a school district. Well, we do have a school district. Well, we have to have a school district that's improving. I agree. Definitionally, I don't know that everybody's gonna, and not just me. I just don't know that everybody's going to see an improving school district and define it the same way. And at one time when we were talking, we had pointed out that Spring Valley as a whole is approaching the taxation level of the school district of Stewartville. Between the city of Stewartville and the school district of Stewartville, the taxation level in Spring Valley, which is a markedly smaller community than Stewartville, we're approaching their percentage, their level of taxation. Are people going to be encouraged to move to a town like Spring Valley if they see the tax level in Spring Valley rising or coming close to a town the size of Stewartville, which is much closer to places like Rochester? Because people are taking that kind of stuff into consideration now. Okay, great. You got a nice little town. Kids are going to be safe. What's the taxation level like? What's it going to cost me to buy a house there, to live there? And what's going to ensure that I'm not going to be taxed out of my home, taxed out of living? And I think that's in particular for city government. That's a very important question to be asking. And do you think that's something that people do take into consideration when they're looking at coming to a town like Spring Valley?
Yes and no. So I had a coworker a few years back who wanted to move to Spring Valley. They found a house that they loved, and then they just decided that a 20-minute drive to Target was just too far, that they would live closer and they would pay higher taxes if that was the case. And so I don't know.
So we need a target. That's what you're saying.
No, please God, no. Yeah,
You
at the
just
end of the
lost
day-
You just lost the next election.
At the end of the day, all I really want is for somebody to open a men's not a men's warehouse, that's a suit place, but a men's clothing store. I just want to buy a pair of pants in Spring Valley, so I don't have to go to Rochester and buy pants.
You could order them on Amazon.
I could order them on Amazon, absolutely, and they'll be processed through Stewartville and shipped to my home. So, I don't know if people really think much about taxes. I think they've just come to the realization they're paying them, whether they like them or not. And so, as far as I'm concerned, it's my responsibility to try and ease that burden as best as we can. And so that's why
you mean in particular easing the tax burden on people who want to come to town or people who do live in town.
Right. So, like you said in the last town hall, the more businesses we can attract to Spring Valley, that will lessen the burden on each individual resident. So it makes sense to me. I don't want to grow just to grow, and then we're just wildly putting stores and homes and industry wherever it lands. It has to be thought through. It has to be strategic and intentional, but it has to happen. If we just sit here and talk about it and not, it goes no further than that, we're going to be in the same place we are in 5 years, 10 years. If we're not actively working towards something, we will probably surpass Stewartville or maybe even Rochester in the sense of property taxes.
Which, in reality, is even more burdensome than it sounds because our population is going to shrink.
Yeah.
Which means that tax burden is actually going to be heavier on the remaining population in town. Do you, and I want to get to some key takeaways that you may have had from the meeting. Do you think that we're not, without revisiting the bike trail conundrum from 25 years ago, because we know how close that came to dividing our town radically in 2019 into 2020, or 1999 into 2000. Excuse me, I'm old, and so it all blends together. When you look at other towns in Fillmore County, because I think that's where we kind of have to draw our comparison, is what's going on in the county. There are other towns that are growing in their tourist industry. They're growing in their restaurateurs and their breweries and whatnot. And like we have Bluff Brothers here in town now. Do you think that the answer going forward is to crack the shell of the nut of growth by first giving people a tourist reason, a touring reason to come to town, and then start looking at keeping people here by not the city providing jobs, but providing incentive for other businesses to provide jobs to those? Or do you think that there's a more tangible, solid, right now fix to this? Because I don't personally see a right now fix. I think it's something that the people and the business owners in particular, Spring Valley, and we've seen this with the Spring Valley Business Alliance, working very hard to create an atmosphere and an environment to bring people to town. It's not going to happen overnight, and I don't think a quick fix like an Amazon or whatever, or Temu or anything like that, having a warehouse here, although the idea of a Temu warehouse would be entertaining.
It would just be really small, probably. When it shows up, it's not what you expected.
I think the industry here in town that's ultimately going to help us grow has got to be historical Spring Valley, come and enjoy it kind of mentality, as opposed to come to Spring Valley because we've got 5 factories.
Yeah.
I just don't see that. Those people are not going to want to build a factory here.
So, how do I want to say this? I will. The tourism board has come together. We have not yet met, but we will be meeting, and it is, to me, it's more than just how can we bring people in to visit Spring Valley. What are the things they're going to come in and visit? That's important. We need to be advertising that and showing people what we have to offer. But I think on top of that is, I love traveling. I love going to other states. I generally stop at small towns similar to Spring Valley and just get out and hang out for a while. I love doing that. And as I walk through the town and drive through the town, I start thinking, man, I could live here. This is a great community. I love it. And so I think that's what the tourism board needs to do, is to help to create a community that's advertised to get people in. So as soon as they're in, they say that I could live here. I could set up shop here. I think this is a great community. And so it's kind of, Spring Valley is like a puzzle. Right now we have 1 or 2 pieces showing. We need to get the rest of them all in place before this is all gonna look decent. You can see what the image is. Right now we're half the pieces flipped over. We don't even know what the image.
I was just gonna say we got a lot of the pieces are flipped over and nobody's out there sorting them out right now.
Right. We're looking for the edge pieces and we don't have a clue where they're at.
Well, we've got an example just in the last few months. We have Calla Lily that has opened here in town. Shout out to Calla Lily, by the way. I'm looking to find them at the next downtown Wednesdays on Broadway. It's Sunday, folks. It's supposed to be my day off. But I'm looking at making contact with them, to kind of highlight them. But like I highlighted the Green Refillery at my walk and talk on Wednesday, and these are people that aren't, if I remember correctly, the Green Refillery folks aren't specifically Spring Valley natives.
I don't believe so. I've met them, and it seems like they live down towards Preston. I believe. Don't quote me on that, but
But even the owner of the Shiny Heiny, she's going to see this and be mad at me for forgetting her name. Don't leave me, huh?
Shelly.
Yeah, Shelly. I talked to her the other night. She did a great job. She should be the spokesperson, like the official spokesperson for the Spring Valley Business Association, by the way. She did a great job. She's down from, down by Forestville State Park, and she chose to open her business up here and has nothing but glowing reviews for Spring Valley. So there are people who are not from town who are willing to come to town to do their business, to have their business going. And I think it's something the city can encourage people to go, hey, look, come to town. And those of you naysayers who live here, start doing business with them.
So you brought up the Green Refillery, which is that business is great. We purchased stuff there now. I had no idea what it was. Went in there and it's great.
Right, because you're like me. The first time you want me to bring my what? To do what? You want me to
like
buy
a mayonnaise jar. Bring it in. We'll fill it with soap. And I'm thinking, you just got big 55-gallon drums of Tide, and you're gonna fill it up. Like my wife's like, you're being an idiot. Just come with me.
And you're like, you married me, so you should know that.
Right. No, but so what they're doing is incredible. But beyond that, the owner of the building, because it used to be the dental office, right? The Spring Valley Dental used to be down there. So the building is still sectioned off in the little patient rooms. And so what the owner of the building is doing is taking each one of those patient rooms and just making it like a pop-up store. And so the Green Refillery is in one of those rooms. And I think they've filled 4 rooms now with different businesses. So you don't have to own a big business to have a store in Spring Valley. You can just rent a small space.
So that building, there are other pop-up businesses in that building?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a salon, and then there's, I'm pretty sure, 4 other businesses. So you just have a product, you rent a small space from them, you set up. You're really not in too deep.
Right.
You know,
you're just in for your product, basically. Yeah.
Rent.
Your rent. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an amazing idea. I love it.
Yeah, that's right. And see, and that's like, there again, without getting into the conspiracy world, that there are 2 ways we can go about how we live in a town like Spring Valley. We can live in constant cloistering where we just don't want any outsiders here. Because when I first came to town, in the mid 90s, it was like, we don't want outsiders here. People can tell me that's not true, but that's when I first moved to town. It was like, who are you and why are you in my town? And I bet it took 5 to 6 years before people would like start to like recognize me, like, and not recognize me like, oh hey, we're friends, but just like, oh yeah, you're from town. We can either live that way, or we can live with, hey, we love to have people here. We would love to have you here. We would love to get to know you.
Yeah.
And things like what you're talking about are a huge inroad to increasing that. If we can welcome people to town who aren't necessarily from town, but have something to bring to town that's going to, especially niche businesses. I think one of the greatest mistakes that people make is trying to appeal too broadly to too many types of people in their business. No, the best way to grow your business is to be a niche business. Find something that people love and do it.
Yeah.
That one thing.
So, back to the Green Refillery, if they're successful, if people, go in there, they purchase their soap, and
they're reusable paper towels, folks. Sure. That right there alone is enough to just go check it out, to try and understand the concept of a reusable paper towel.
And I'm only saying their name because I'm not partial to them. There's
no, it's a good example.
This is just the one you brought up and the one I can recall the name of. Okay, so they're successful and they continue. We patronize them, and we're purchasing their products, and they're doing well. So worst case scenario, they just stay in that pop-up, and that's just, they're happy with that, and they move on with life, renting that space. Best case scenario, they realize Spring Valley loves us. Let's expand. We purchase an empty building somewhere in town, and we open our own store. And now that opens up that space for someone else to start
the next pop-up
over again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a great idea. I love it.
The perfect example of what you're saying is the vendors that show up for Wednesdays on Broadway.
Right. Right. So when that
you got people coming to town, or like they're selling product in town.
Yeah.
Now let's give them a reason to come and open a storefront in town. Can we please?
Right. And I don't recall how many patient rooms are in there. There's probably a dozen or so. But if that were to fill up, that would be like a daily Wednesdays on Broadway miniature size in that building. Right. It's great.
Right. Did you have anything from the last town hall that really stood out to you that people had to say? You don't have to mention their names in particular, but I know you did refresh by rewatching the town hall, which that is great. But what stood out to you from people's discussion last time? And I'm going to add this on the front end. Yes, folks, I agree. We need to do more about signage in Spring Valley. Signage is not going to make Spring Valley grow.
No. I agree with you partially on that.
That's
So,
two.
twice in
Twice
an
in
hour, just
1
under an hour.
hour.
So no, Spring Valley is not going to make our town, a great town. However,
You mean signs?
what did I say?
You said Spring Valley is not going to make our town a great town.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Spring Valley signs are not going to make our town amazing. A few years back, I worked part-time at Quick Trip, the old Quick Trip.
Yes,
Right.
you did.
I could not tell you how many times I would get people coming through town and saying, "Where am I? What is this place called?" So, I mean, at least you would be able to tell people before they get to the first business that they're visiting where they're at,
I just showed up at your restaurant. I don't even know how I got here. Where are we? Like, are we stuck in the 50s? What?
They're probably not using GPS, I'm assuming.
No, I'm not no, I'm all for whatever can be done to improve, signage as people come into town from the 5,000 different directions you can get into town on every rural road or whatever. But I'm not saying that isn't important. What I am saying is that your signs have to be welcome to Spring Valley. Check us out, not here's all the businesses in town and then hope that that's going to grow it any more than, every small town in southern Minnesota has a sign that lists all the churches in town. Like, ain't nobody coming to Spring Valley for the churches, folks. And no offense to the Christian folk in town, but that's not why they're coming.
Generally, if they're coming, it's because they already attend that church. There's a wedding or a funeral, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that aside, what were your takeaways? Because I don't want to keep you too long on a Sunday. So I know you got other things to do.
But I will answer that question. But as far as the signage goes, that is the first impression of our community. If they see something that excites them or at least stands out, they're more liable to stop for more than just gas anyway. Everybody stops for fuel as they go through Spring Valley, but maybe they're more liable if they see something that attracts them, right? I don't know. My head's in the clouds sometimes.
You gotta be careful what you put on them signs, though.
Yeah, there. We won't go there. No, it was interesting to me that a lot of the comments weren't so much. It necessarily wouldn't even cost us a ton of money, either individuals or the city, taxpayers. But it was a lot of stuff outside. We want farm tours and Amish tours, which I think would be amazing.
I don't know who brought up the Amish tour, by the way.
Yeah. I won't name names. More trees and take better care of our trails and our parks and things like that, which I agree with all of those. But mowing our parks more often or making sure the weeds are taken care of, I'm not sure that's going to bring any revenue. It's not going to cut taxes for you, things like that. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of a surprise to me, that the things that people really wanted, which are all fantastic, I'm not sure in the long run would be a benefit. I'm not saying don't do them. I'm just saying with the idea of how
they're a benefit, but in a different direction.
Right. How do we ease your tax burden? Plant trees. Unless you're cutting that tree down to make money, I don't know if that's gonna. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna help.
Well, I think people confuse their idea of beautification with attractiveness. And a really good example to me is the difference between a city like La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Rochester, Minnesota. You have equanimity to a degree between those two. They're roughly the same size, roughly the same commercial base. But no one ever goes into Rochester and says, man, La Crosse should look like Rochester. People go from Rochester to La Crosse and they're like, man, this town is gorgeous. And look at its downtown area. All of the old architecture is still there. They're encouraging people to to grow their businesses down there, encouraging people to keep the architecture of the downtown the same, because there's something about the historicity of downtown La Crosse. Yeah, it's a river town, so there's a flaw in the comparison to a degree. But people look at downtown La Crosse and they're like, man alive, this town is gorgeous. Now, you don't see all the behind the scenes problems, but it's gorgeous. And then you get to Rochester, and Rochester is so busy being so busy about being busy, looking like a metro area, that they haven't preserved anything about that town that would have been appealing. And I think that's the thing with a town like Spring Valley is we have beautiful buildings in this town. Absolutely stunning. When you just get past whether or not they're maintained, some of them are maintained the way we want.
Yeah.
When you look at the downtown, there is historicity to be had there. That doesn't mean that your business has, all your staff have to be dressed like, early 1900s school marms as they're, selling product, whether they're, serving you a schooner, a beer, or wrapping your package as a gift for somebody. The candle. No, it just means what is going to benefit Spring Valley. And I think it's the historicity of the town. That's what's going to, bring people in and then encourage them to want to be part of that as it grows. And I think personally for me, what they're doing with the beautification project downtown doesn't eliminate everybody else in town being involved, but the beautification aspect, that's a central hub. That's where people are going to go and gather. And what they're doing, to me, is going to help with that.
And technically, I'm just going to get technical with you. The project is not to make downtown beautiful. Yes, update it, but more so accessibility and walkability. So we want people to feel safe crossing the street with the bump outs because they can see further down the street. Traffic is going to be calmer because it appears narrower and they're not going to drive as fast. So it makes it safer. And so, in some aspects,
you could do all of that with industrial brutalist style blocks and stuff, and that's not what they're doing. They're doing it to beautify it. And
right, yeah. So doing what is needed for accessibility and doing it in a way that is beautiful. And there's going to be other things that happen along the way that will add to it. But, it'll be good to see that done.
In the reality of what needs to be done for Spring Valley, do you take from your personal perspective, we can bring up the Spring Valley Business Alliance. I say alliance in association. I interchange them, so I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong either way.
It's okay because it's not a city group.
Right. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's an independent.
But I'm sure they would appreciate being called
the right thing. So SVBA there, you guys, I'm going to do the American thing. When you look at the SVBA and whatnot, do you think it's the role of city government to be more involved in planning the improvements to the town as a whole, or more of a asset for people who want to do the improving of the town?
I am more than happy to listen to any idea in any part of town. So you've got Greg who wants to get the signs going, and he came to council and asked for permission to put a committee together to come up with some ideas, and then he's going to come back to council for approval and the ideas behind how it's going to be funded and all of this. I am happy to have people come and discuss their ideas and come with at least a generalized plan of what's going to happen. Should someone take a bulldozer to downtown and start digging up the street because they want bump outs? No. But if you've got the idea that this could be a benefit for our community, bring it. We can discuss it, look at all the aspects of it, depending on where it is and what the project is. The engineer may have to get involved, and there's a whole process. But I'm more than happy to hear it and at least consider what could be done. It may not be 100% your idea, but we may take 90% and add the 10% that is most important to us, and it becomes something different. But
I just can't get the image of a killdozer in downtown Spring Valley. I was like, killdozer too.
And I say that sort of joking, but there was concerns when that idea came to council that they were already too far along in the process and they were ready to start
to pull back. Yeah.
And and I don't think they would have, and they weren't to that point yet. But
nobody in the SVBA was going to show up and just start doing the work. Like for one, that's just like they're not going to invest the money out of their own pockets in that situation.
Let's go back to the discussion we had an hour ago, where the individual was concerned because someone is mowing their yard.
Right.
Do not go on someone's personal property and start mowing their yard. Do not go onto city property and start digging it up with the bulldozers. It's the same, same concept.
Yeah, absolutely. The ultimate solution for, because you had mentioned during the town hall, look, folks, like, money's going to be tight. It's tight. Spring Valley's budget is tight. We've got, wastewater treatment and road work that, has to get done because, one, I think there's somewhere in Minnesota state statute, it might actually be in the Constitution, that requires that there never be a road in any town in Spring Valley that's not blocked at any time by road construction. I think it's constitutionally enshrined.
Yeah.
That's that's like the supreme law of Minnesota. You must block at least 2 roads a year.
And make sure that the detour for the first closure is affected by the second one. So you're really just
detouring people. Yeah. Which, by the way, the detour is open. Is closed now.
Yes, was it Friday, I believe?
Friday, yeah.
So it's gravel. They still have to blacktop it, but they're letting it settle. But at least you can pass through it. So that's good.
But where was I going with that? Ultimately,
here's the deal. So right now, top of priority for me is, of course, the wastewater treatment plant. That is 15 million, and that was quoted, I think, a year and a half ago. So who knows what 17 million now, probably, or greater.
If you're lucky.
I'm just throwing numbers out there. Don't quote me, please. Let's just keep it at the 15 million because I know for sure it's a minimum. It's going to be 15.
Oh, you're going to get quoted as 15 million just because you said it on a show with me and you were with me. That's what's going to happen. Like, he was on with TC and he said 15 million.
And here's how things go. Because people tell me, "Oh, I heard you were on that show and you said it was going to be 115 million." So, yeah, quote me whatever you want, but tell them to go back and watch this so they can hear 15 million.
The most recent quote we have, yeah.
Yes. But then in addition to that is the southeast side of town, which is 16 million. Everybody I have spoken to that has any length of time working in city of Spring Valley does not know when the infrastructure was done on the southeast side of town, other than was it Fremont, who was just done a couple of years ago.
Right.
North of that, nobody knows when that was done. So I mean, we're talking decades. It is destroyed.
I've lived here since 95, and I cannot remember any aspect of that part of town outside of Fremont, which was a very small project ultimately.
Right.
That was ever, and it needs it.
Yeah.
It
Well,
absolutely needs it.
their water stinks. It's discolored.
Mhm.
I would bet. I don't know for sure. It's not safe to drink. It's not safe to use for cooking. At best, flushing your toilet. You probably shouldn't even wash your clothes in it because they're going to be discolored. So, that bothers me. We have to do the wastewater treatment plant because it's a state mandate that we bring it up to the new code.
Code, yep.
So we can't get out of that. But beyond that, the southeast side of town has to be done. Nobody should have to live with water that is in that state. Period. We're in the first world country.
My co-host from Veteran Nation, who was watching my flood coverage last Sunday, a week ago today, which, by the way, is a very interesting video if you haven't seen it yet. I would just encourage you to watch for no other reason than just watch. That's all I have to say about that, because I'm now Forrest Gump. Said no more flooding, which I knew at some point somebody was going to bring it up. I just didn't expect it to be the guy from the high desert of California. Here's the reality. And this is again me speaking, and then I'll kind of let you have your closing thoughts before I do my final close. Like Justin, you've known me for quite a while now. Everybody knows I'm an ultra small government guy. I'm absolutely ultra small government. I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I believe that people are better left to run their own lives with no interference from anybody. But we live in a world, and we live in a republic where people have come to be dependent on local government. And when I mean dependent, I don't mean like, send me a check every month so I can buy my groceries. That's not what I'm talking about. We're dependent on government. We expect roads to be in good repair and to be clear of snow. We expect the water to come out of the tap clean and ready to drink, because that's how we've been raised. That's where we're at. Those things cost money. And expecting the city to fix every little problem and every little thing for every single person on a personal interest level is missing the bigger picture of, we've got bigger fish to fry. And if we don't take care of our wastewater treatment facility, none of us are going to have clean drinking water. If we don't take care of the people on the southeast side of town, then eventually the people on the northwest side of town are going to have a problem too, and we're not going to be able to take care of them. Because how do you look at the people on the southeast side of town and say, you're not important, we got to go do this? Ultimately, my perspective, if people love this town, they have got to be the ones that start to make the improvements when it comes to drawing and inviting people to this town, opening businesses and encouraging people to invite them. Hey, come down and check out. We've got Rax, we've got Stellar, we've got Elaine's, we've got, it's not even Elaine's down, what do we call it now? You can tell how long I've been in town. I called it Elaine's.
Valley Diner.
Valley Diner. So sorry to the Valley Diner people. We've got Big Bob's. We've got the bowling alley. We've got businesses in town. Go buy your meat at Valley Butchery. Go buy your meat at Odie's, market. Whatever it is. I'm not endorsing one or the other over a bunch more. I'm saying, look, we've got these things. We have to do our part so that the city can do the big things that the rest of us cannot afford to do. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I ain't got $15 million sitting around to put in my own wastewater treatment facility. So, what are your closing thoughts? When's the next town hall, and when's the next city council meeting?
Next town hall is September 17th, 7 p.m. Spring Valley Community Center. There is no topic. We're going to just let people meander, if you will.
For an hour?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to definitely make sure I'm healthy to be there for that one. That'll be fun.
I set a topic for the first two, and a good chunk of each of those were discussing things that weren't really on topic. So I thought, well, what the heck? Let's just open it up. They can say whatever they want. See how
no
that
one's going to want to talk because there's no topic. I see what you're doing.
goes. Or no one will show up because there's no topic. Just leave at 7:01.
Next city council meeting is.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't keep track of those.
It's the second Monday of the month.
Yeah, so we're gonna look at September 8th.
So before the next town hall.
Yep.
All right. Closing thoughts on your part?
Yeah. Okay. So this is gonna be a bit long. You got 5 minutes?
Oh, I've got all the time for you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. And just cut me off if it gets to be too long.
Oh, I'll just make it really awkward for you, though.
So I've got 5 kids, as you know, and every year, when they were in, I believe, kindergarten, they would do a school project, cut and paste the Lorax. You know the Dr. Seuss, the Lorax, the book, and it has a statement on it, and I'll tell you what that is in just a second. I believe the book. I don't know for sure. You probably know, but it's about environmentalism, keeping our planet green and fresh and clean water and all of that. And not that I disagree with that, but I was looking at my 5th child's project that was on the fridge for like 2 months, and the quote on there is from the book. It says, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not." And so that is, I sat there and thought, well, yeah, it's about trees and clean water and all of that stuff, and that's great. But what if that is also Spring Valley? So unless you or I or the next guy doesn't care a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. So that is my final thought. I need to care a whole awful lot. Otherwise, in 10 years, it's going to be the same as where we are right now.
Yeah, it's not too far removed from the idea of see a problem, be the solution.
Yep.
Not see something, say something, but see something, fix something. And it goes hand in hand with the idea of supporting the lesser of two bads. You're still supporting bad. So if you see something that needs to be fixed and you're not actively taking part in fixing it, you're just complaining about it, then the more you complain about it, just the worse it is, and the more it needs to be fixed. That's why after all the years of me doing this show, I started showing up to city council meetings when I can make it, Mr. Mayor. Even though everybody from city staff to elected officials see me walk in and they're like, "Oh crap."
Sit up straight, don't say anything. No,
he's back. What's he going to yell at us about this time?
I have heard from a handful of people that a meeting would be a benefit to them because they do work in Rochester or in other communities where they can't get home in time to make it again out to a council meeting. Right. So we are discussing that at the September 8th meeting.
Oh, cool. That's actually really neat to talk about that.
What happens after that discussion, I don't know. But
it's out of your hands. You're not the city council.
I'm only one of 5 votes. I'm sorry. I can't promise anything.
Well, Justin, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I know this, for people who tune in to me regularly, this is, a lot of them go, this isn't what he normally does. No, there again, Justin's known me for a while. This is actually what I do. It's just not in keeping with all the other stuff that you see between meetings. And I genuinely appreciate this. I genuinely appreciate the city council. I know there are times that I don't agree with all the decisions that city council and the city makes, and all the positions that the different people hold and take. But I do appreciate what you guys are doing, and that I do genuinely believe that you and the rest of the council are fighting in your own ways to try and make the city better and make it grow. And which is why I stay around and stay involved. So I do appreciate it. Yeah, if there's ever anything that you want, you guys, and this is open to anybody on the council, let them know if there's ever something that they want to be able to talk about and be able to get it out beyond, because we don't really have a paper. We have a paper of record, but we don't have a media outlet of record that's putting this stuff out. So I'm more than willing to let people come on and talk about those things. So
And
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate everything you do. Especially when you show up to the town halls and you record them. I think that's fantastic. I appreciate that.
Well, I plan on making more of them. I'm working on trying to be able to afford better mics, because the ones I got were super inexpensive and they don't work all that well. So I do want to get better ones. So
Yeah.
hopefully at the next, well, I don't know, maybe by the next town hall meeting or even the next city council meeting, if I can make it,
Yeah.
we'll be able to have better audio. So Justin, get out of here. I will do a quick close and give people a heads up for what's going on for my week. And I will see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
for your meandering.
Anytime.
Everybody, you guys know what I believe in when I talk about think local and act local, and that's how we make a difference in our republic. Honestly, if you want to improve, if you don't like the direction the country's heading, the place that you start is with your city councils, your school boards, which I'm still trying to be able to get time to get to school board meetings too. I'm one person, folks. And county commission meetings, which is another one. I would love to see them change their meeting times to an evening. I'm just going to say this in particular about Spring Valley. Spring Valley City Council, at least they have their meetings in the evening. School boards have their meeting in the evening. County commissioners, they meet during the day. So unless you're willing to take time off from work without pay or burn PTO, you can't get to a county commissioner meeting and ask questions or voice concerns or voice support or whatever. What people need to remember is that city councils, county commissions, school boards, they work for us. They serve us. And whatever is going to increase the most amount of public activity and most amount of public involvement is what needs to be done. That's what needs to be done. And lack of public involvement is like growing mold in the dark. Even if you're not doing anything intentionally wrong, it's just the mold is going to grow. And that's why I'm so encouraged by a city council that's willing to meet with people, with a mayor who is willing to do town halls. That's transparency, and I really appreciate that. So we're going to have an interesting week this week here on the channel. More shorts from multiple interactions that I've had over the last week. I had a couple of really interesting interactions with Minnesota State Patrol here in Spring Valley last Sunday, a week ago today. One of them's funnier than I'll get out. I thought it was funny. I don't know if she thought it was as funny as it was, but it was funny. And I had other people that saw it and said that was hilarious. But so I've got some shorts that are coming out this week that you guys are going to enjoy. Probably be at least one drive time dialectic. I'm working on some thoughts on a particular story that I've been covering. But on Saturday of this coming week, I am going to be on with a new show out of the great northern part of Minnesota, Duluth area. The name of the show is Sentinels of Liberty, and he reached out to me because he's friends with my friend Rebecca Whiting, who is from Bemidji, who came all the way down here last year for Wednesdays on Broadway to talk about her Senate race campaign against, or not against, but as the libertarian candidate for the U.S. Senate seat, and so she introduced him to me, and so I'm going on his show to talk a little bit about the modern institution of policing in the United States. And it's going to prove to be a very interesting conversation. So if you guys, I will be sharing that link on the community page of the YouTube channel, and also a link to Rumble for that as well. So stay tuned. And I do want to share one thank you to everybody. My last big surge in growth on my channel came. I hit a milestone when I hit 4,000 subscribers. And that 4,000 subscriber mark I hit on July 24th of this year. So July 24th, 2025. I hit 4,500 subscribers on August 21st of 2025. So actually less than a month between those two milestones. My goal is to hit 5,000 before the end of the year. And I am thankful for every single subscriber that I have. I'm very thankful, incredibly thankful for all the channel members. Channel members really are what keep the channel going. And so if you're a channel member on YouTube, thank you so much. If you're a watcher on Rumble but haven't become a member, please think about doing that. And I'm always looking for more people to show producer level. Folks, get involved locally, think local, act local. And until next time, fight for your freedom. It is yours. Fight for your liberty. It belongs to you. And Sic Semper, Tyrannus.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.